Well, folks, you're watching The Political Vigilante. I am here with the co-host of Boom Bust on RT, Christy Ai, who has been on our show several times. And I wanted to talk to you because obviously you're big in the crypto space. We first had you on the show last summer when I first started to get involved in this. I'm now a year in. I'm still sort of, what am I? I'm in my sophomore year of crypto.
Thank God you got in, because with YouTube demonetized, now you can accept crypto. So thank God for crypto, right?
I mean, honestly, since I've been demonetized, I've been covering the losses of the YouTube money through Rockfin that pays us in their token, and I've converted that to Ethereum and some to Bitcoin, and that's how I'm paying my bills. I just cashed out some Ethereum. And that's amazing. That's a miracle.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like no one can control it. And that's the real intrinsic value of Bitcoin. And everybody gets so like hyped up on it, thinking that they're going to get rich, that they forget what it's fundamentally about. The fact that it's not controlled by some big institution who can, on a whim, either think to confiscate it, demonetize it, drop it down to zero. Oh, let's pump a ton of it into the system and have it worth nothing.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a little while. But I really wanted to talk about the one thing that it is susceptible to is manipulation. And obviously Elon Musk, I mean, like, we're all supposed to believe this guy that runs a electric car company and sells solar panels had no idea that Bitcoin mining used electricity. Like, how did we know that?
Oh my God, that was the lamest excuse I've ever heard, because yes, he runs electric cars and everything. But on the other hand, he also builds rockets. So just think about that. He builds real rockets. Like when you see it explode, it has these big fat plumes that are oh so very iconic. Like, what's in those plumes? CO2, carbon soot, carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide, chlorine, aluminum, like literally just to name a few, plus sulfur, lots of sulfur compounds too. So all of these things are just greenhouse gases, particulates. Every single time you launch a rocket, you have that big plume. And not only that, they destroy ozones, they destroy marine life, all that stuff. And now you're attacking Bitcoin mining for using energy. It's like, what the heck? It's like, did you even do your research? Like, are you looking at what you're doing in terms of mining lithium batteries for your Tesla powered cars?
Yeah. I mean, we can go on and on. He moved his factories from California to Texas for the tax break. And guess what? Texas, 19% of their electricity is by coal-powered power plants.
Exactly.
So is he going to shut down his factories in Texas now because they're dirty? Like, it's so ridiculous. And
his entire argument is hypocritical. And actually what I think is that he was kind of backed into a corner, and he actually had to choose whether or not he wanted to accept Bitcoin, because, and this is just a theory, because he moved his plant over to Asia, and Asia, China especially, is producing a lot of his Tesla vehicles. He announced that he's accepting Bitcoin. But meanwhile, China right now is cracking down heavily on Bitcoin mining in preparation of their launch of this digital RMB. So in doing so, I'm pretty sure that he has to be on good terms with the government over in China. And most likely, they probably asked him to not accept Bitcoin or something along those lines. Because I don't think this was personally motivated, especially when you dumped in that many billions of Bitcoin purchases back in March or April, whenever. When you dump in that big of an investment, that's a large chunk of money. You did your due diligence. As a founder of tech companies like PayPal, like Tesla and all that, you've done your research and you know the energy consumption. And this is not a haphazard decision to just plow billions of dollars into Bitcoin. So I do think that there was underlying motivation for it. And the fact that he's just turning around and blaming it as some green thing is just him trying to cover his own butt, trying to make an excuse.
Well, that's a really interesting. I've never actually heard this theory, but I know. I mean, I see it all the time in Hollywood capitulates to the Chinese government at every turn. If the Chinese government says, I mean, you cannot depict the Chinese government in a negative light if you want to get a movie released in China.
Exactly.
That's an interesting point. Here's what I and that might have factored into this as well. I don't trust billionaires at all. And this notion that Elon Musk was like, oh, gee, it's figured to me like a deliberate manipulation to get the price down. And I bet you we're going to find out at some point that he scooped up a bunch of this himself.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have no doubt that right now, because of his like one tweet, the fact that one tweet can shake Bitcoin up and have it drop 25% in a day, I think that's massive power to him. But the fact is, that is kind of market manipulation, because his one tweet also drove up the price of Bitcoin. So I do think that he has kind of spurred on to this movement of green energy and all that. But it's also kind of funny that now that there is a Bitcoin Green Energy Council, that Elon Musk is kind of on the outs with it. They kind of booted him off the council, which I think is really funny about it. But I think they booted him off for a very good reason too, because of the fact that his tweet has such a big effect on the markets. And I think right now, especially with the advent of Robinhood and commission-free trading and things like that, this kind of goes hand in hand with the entire meme stock trading that we see in like BlackBerry, Hertz, AMC, GameStop, and all of that. People just buy into the hype over a tweet or momentum and hype, and they just kind of want to jump onto the bandwagon without any thought or consideration of, is this actually true? Is Bitcoin actually bad for the environment? They don't actually think about that anymore. And now it just becomes about momentum, hype, and FOMO.
Yeah, and it seems to me that, people with a lot of money know this, and they know they can scare people, the people that just, the bandwagon jumpers, you know what I mean? And they figured what it feels like to me, just knowing how the billionaire elites operate, is they're like, well, let's put this fear into the marketplace. So all of these people that own small amounts of Bitcoin, 5 or less full coins, or even just half of coin, whatever, just a handful of Satoshis or whatever. And they're like, let's scoop these up. Because if we scare, because there's only 21 million, and they know this, there's only 21 million. And a lot of people who just bought into Bitcoin, in February or whatever, don't even know that much about it. They just were like, oh, GameStop, Bitcoin. And so it feels like they were like, let's scare these people out, and we'll scoop up more of it, because we know, a year or 2 years, 5 years from now, it's going to be worth 500,000, $1 million. It could be worth, it's, who knows how high it could be worth. So how much of that, what other evidence have you seen to suggest that there is a lot of that? Because I'm not seeing the institutional companies backing out during this time. I'm not seeing that.
There isn't. It's a lot of retail, and that's the thing. And one of the biggest evidence of it is Dogecoin. I mean, you've heard of Dogecoin, right, by now? Dogecoin, yes. Shiba coin, and all of that stuff. It is literally the dumbest thing ever. It was made as a joke in the cryptocurrency community. Yes, it's a coin. It was made literally as a joke to be like, oh, hey, this is also a coin. You can like make whatever Christy coin, Graham coin, like any coin. It was literally as a proof of concept, as a joke, just put out there to show what the technology was. And Elon Musk, on the other hand, decided to just pump it up for whatever reason, because it's a joke, because it's funny. He thought that, hey, it'll be cool to put us some money in it and just essentially pump it up to 100, 1,000x, which was crazy when you see that, because you have someone who is supposedly this tech icon who's backing a useless joke coin like Dogecoin, while also criticizing Bitcoin as being like energy sucking and bad for the environment. I mean, if he just simply criticized Bitcoin on that, yeah, a lot of people would have taken him seriously. But the fact that he was actually making money, profiting on the back of Dogecoin, which is literally the stupidest thing ever, and then you have mindless trollers and basically Elon Musk fanboys just jumping on the bandwagon, not knowing what a Dogecoin is, not knowing there's no utility behind it, that there's actually no utility behind a Dogecoin, just jumping on board the bandwagon and then popping it from less than a penny to like 69 cents. It's a meme coin, 69 cents.
So, yeah. And what that did too, is then you got all these people who don't know what they're talking about, like Bill Maher or Liz Warren, like, all these cryptos are scams, Bitcoin, Dogecoin. And it's like, boy, they don't even understand. It's like saying it's like 20 years ago, and these websites, Amazon and the Nigerian lottery ones, they're all scams. It's like, they don't know what they're talking. That lumping Dogecoin in with Bitcoin shows me that the person saying that is the most clueless jackass ever.
Exactly. Exactly. And Elon Musk isn't the only person who's doing this. You have another billionaire, Mark Cuban. You saw that he was backing Iron Finance and how that entire thing blew up to zero. Like, oh my God, when I saw that, I was like, that is actually impressive. Like, he deserves a slow clap for just dropping something to zero, because we have not seen anything like that since the early days of crypto, where you literally had something at like $60, $70 just tank to zero in less than 24 hours. Like, that's actually impressive how fast it just went bankrupt and popped. So that was one of those partially collateralized stablecoin, which is actually very similar to how the fractional reserve banking system works and everything. So Mark Cuban backed this thing, and he was actually quoted saying that he was too lazy to do the math to determine how it worked and what the key metrics are. So putting that aside, he wrote this big blog post on June 13th before it went pop, 3 days before it went bust, touting the potential benefits and the DeFi innovations of this Titan coin and Iron Finance and everything, how great it was. And basically, Iron Finance popped and became popular because of this blog post that he posted, and basically went 100x in like 3 days. It went 100x. So Mark Cuban pumped this thing essentially 100x only to be rugged down to zero. And Cuban actually was able to get out of it very early on before it got to zero. So he actually made money on it by driving the price up due to his blog post, even though he did say, oh, I also got hurt. Yes, you got hurt a little bit, but all your followers got hurt a lot more when they invested it in at 60, 65, and then when it had it basically worthless, because Titan had zero utility at all, and Cuban was basically shilling it at the peak.
Yeah, this just feels like there's a lot of this like deliberate pump and dump stuff happening because they know they can get away with it. I mean, that's part of it. But also feels like a lot of people sort of woken up to who, all these like, oh, Elon Musk, like, 4 months, 5 months ago, everyone's like, oh, Elon Musk is so great for Bitcoin. And now they're realizing, oh, no, he's not. And so they're not the big fans anymore. But I wanted we're seeing how they're manipulating it. And, Bitcoin right now has just been sort of moving around the whatever $34,000 range. And all this institutional money's coming in. There was the full ad in the Wall Street Journal yesterday about the NYDIG thing that was sort of announced, and there's more institutions. I was watching the show Altcoin Daily, and they said there's over 650 like banks and financial institutions that are starting to offer it. So where do you see this going from here? In terms of this deliberate manipulation, and how now it's all this, everyone's like, oh, we're in a bear market. Like, really, are we? Especially with El Salvador announcing it's going to be their currency. And I think that's a domino effect, especially in South America. So where do you see this going in the next like 3 to 12 months?
Well, I think it's really difficult with market manipulation because on the one hand, especially here in America, you do have like freedom of speech. So especially in a platform like Twitter, anybody, no matter how influential you are and everything, you can tweet and say whatever you want. It's really up to the followers and the masses. So it's actually the masses' fault for kind of believing all these popular influencers and basically hanging on to every single word like it's gospel. So I think that is kind of the trend that we're in, that everybody's very extreme. They have their biases, they know who they like, and it's basically all in. I feel like people have lost their ability to kind of critically think about what people say and like pick apart, because you can love Elon Musk. Like, I like Elon Musk for certain things that he does, like he gave us Tesla, that's great. But certain things that he does just don't make sense. So you can like a person, but you don't have to follow every single thing that they do. But everybody now is just so biased, so very extreme, and so very polarized. And I feel like that's starting to become a trend nowadays, that every single influencer just gets these massive cult followings of worshipers, whether it's like a Cuban camp, a Musk camp, or whatever. But essentially, I think that's going to be like a real problem, because it can't really be market manipulation. You're putting out a tweet. It's literally the masses that are now gaining traction. It's not like the early days of penny stocks where people were doing all these like listings and scamming people by saying, oh, this is going to be a great company. We have XYZ product. We have XYZ technology, blah, blah. Like, you're lying to people to get them to invest in an IPO into a penny stock. You're actually lying to them when you're cold calling them and having them believe that, oh, this company's going to make it to the moon. This company's going to be great when we list it. You need to get in now on the ground floor. Like, that's essentially why the regulation was put into place, to not have all these cold callings, like the uninstitutional investors, people who don't have the knowledge to make investment decisions. So that was done as a consumer protection. In cryptocurrency land, we currently don't have that. But I do think that less regulation is better because it leads to education. The more regulation you have, the more dependent people are on regulation to be like, oh, this rule will protect us. Oh, that rule will protect us. You lose the ability to analyze situations yourselves. Is kind of where I stand on that.
Okay. Yeah, since it is hard to predict, well, let's add this into the equation now. I mean, since you've been on the show last, God only knows how many trillions of dollars the Federal Reserve has printed and put into the economy. It's just like, I don't even want to add it
We
up.
can introduce more money in the American economy in literally the shortest time that we've seen in any point in American history. Like the US dollar is only like 200 years old. And now in this past year, we have introduced 22% of that entire supply. That's like mind-blowing to me. And also, the thing is, for the bulk of that 200 years, the US dollar was actually backed by something. It was backed by gold. And now it isn't.
So yeah, I know. And that's such a, as someone who started to pay more attention to this the last couple of years, and then crypto specifically in the last year, I'm watching this and I'm like, first of all, we have all these bubbles. Oh my God, there's a banking bubble, there's a housing bubble, there's a bond market, which I barely understand bubble. I mean, and I'm like, the housing, you can't keep doing this. People are like, oh, well, this is the kind of crap I heard in 2007 when there was like a handful of people going, something bad's coming. And then even the so-called experts are like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. And like, even some people predicted the collapse in 2007. And when that didn't happen, they're like, see, they're just barking at the moon. They're crazy. It's like, no, it can't just got kicked down the road. And we talked about that last summer when you were on the show for the first time, but now we've had 2 stimulus bills since then. And now the infrastructure bill.
Oh, yes.
Sounds good on paper. Oh, America needs a new infrastructure and green energy. All sounds good. Biden says the right things in the speeches in front of the electric Ford trucks behind him or whatever, but I don't trust these jackasses at all. I mean, since they've given trillions of dollars to Wall Street and not the American people, the foreclosure, forbearance stuff, that's ending at the end of July. Yeah. So how do you see all of this? There's no way we can keep this going, right?
No, there really isn't, because if you think about it, the forbearance thing is ending. Right now you have massive inflation. Like you see that at the gasoline pumps, with food prices, with utilities, with the cost of goods, commodities. Everything's pretty much getting more expensive while income is stagnant, which basically means that income is declining in the face of all this inflation. And then, as you said, with housing, you have rent also jumping almost like 20%. You have 45% of houses selling for more than their listing prices now. And everything right now is just getting more and more expensive, especially in the housing. So it's not like the previous crashes and the previous cycles where you have consumers and developers basically over leveraged on the housing real estate front, because every single crash is different, which is a good thing, because I guess that means we actually do learn from our history, kind of, sort of, but we don't repeat the exact same thing. So we had the tech bubble crash, we had the subprime mortgage crash in the housing market. So this, I don't think will actually be like a housing crash. We are a little over leveraged and everything, but I think a lot more of it has to do with the over exuberance that we're seeing in, as we said, the meme stock trading, whether it's in crypto or the actual equities market, because now retail is actually a significant part of the equities market, which is changing the whole dynamics for hedge funds. So like things like GameStop, Bed Bath Beyond, Hertz, like seriously, who goes and buys a company that's filing for bankruptcy? Like in the old days, like you short that. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to short a company that's going to bankruptcy. But no, nowadays you have people going like, hey, I'm going to put a lot of money in it. I'm going to get all my friends to come invest in it. We're going to save it and buy a ton of shares in it and drive it up. So that's fundamentally wrong. And you can make a quick flip and a short-term profit if you have a large enough following, momentum, and hype behind it. But how long could that possibly go on for? And like they say, the bigger the ship, the harder it is to turn, because the more you pump it up, the harder it is to turn, because the market cap is actually growing. AMC's market cap was around 200 million last year, and now it's nearly 30 billion. So that means it's going to be more and more difficult for new followers, new investors that are just jumping on board to incrementally buy more and accumulate more shares, because the market cap is so large. It's going to take a larger amount of capital to actually significantly move it a couple percentage points and actually make money. So I don't think this is something that can last long, and it's going to run out when basically retail runs out of money.
Yeah. I mean, those are all great points. Folks, you're watching The Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood. We're here with Christy Ai, co-host of Boom Bust on RT. Hit the like button. And we're talking about what is all this money printing and also, the inflation that we're already seeing the inflation now. I've just seen it at the grocery store. The gas prices, or what are they in Southern California? $4.25 or $4.30 or something like that now?
I mean, yeah, I guess that's the median. I've been seeing like $4.60 where I'm at.
Wow. I mean, that's insane. And nationwide, it's probably close to $4 a gallon. I mean, the last time we saw this prices was like 2008 during the election.
Yeah.
So, and then this, all the stimulus money that's been put out there, and, all these billionaires that actually have made record profits. And some companies like the tourism industry, they're jacking up their prices because they're trying to make up for the losses of last year. You've got this rental car shortage nationwide. Mm-hmm. And this is like just a recipe for a crash. I mean, it just feels like there's a massive crash coming. And I worry too. I mean, you just said that you don't think there might not be as big of a housing crash. I don't know. Just when all of the banks say, okay, we can't evict you, that when that ends, when they can say, you got to pay up, people are going to go, I'm putting this house for sale rather than get a foreclosure. So then that's right now, there's a shortage of inventory nationwide. Mm-hmm. So when all these people are faced with, and they're going to get this big bill for all the past months or year that they haven't been paying their interest or whatever, or the company just goes, hey, your $1,500 mortgage payment now is now $2,500, and people go, I can't afford this. And
exactly. It's gonna be a real big crash sooner or later, whether it's from the housing, whether the catalyst is the housing or the actual market. But right now, it's like, yes, the moratorium might be ending, but who knows? Because given the current political situation, it could then be extended again. Because we've seen the Fed be very, very dovish. We've seen the current office be very, very dovish to all of these situations. And in light of the situation, they could actually do another stimulus shot, because we've seen it before. Every single time the market throws a temper tantrum and asks for more money, we get another stimulus shot. It's basically called the Fed put. Like, we expect this, but the thing is, it cannot last. So it's really like, when does the party end? Because we think the party ends every single time when we run out of money from one stimulus. But hey, we get another one. Oh my God. And the market learns this. The market's like a little kid. You teach it bad behavior, it's going to learn bad behavior and stuff like that. And as you mentioned earlier, we have the infrastructure plan, apparently. We have this amazing infrastructure plan that's basically another stimulus shot, introducing new money, new capital into the economy at a time when we're already so concerned about overheating. So that, again, raises this potential that inflation could totally heat up, because what is this? This infrastructure plan that has about $600 billion in new spend, and that takes into the running tally of the global monetary and fiscal stimulus to about $30.5 trillion in just the past 15 months. So think about it, $30.5 trillion in less than a year and a half. That's the equivalent of the entire Chinese and European GDPs. So it's like, literally, if there's any confusion as to why, despite the fact millions are still unemployed right now, but right now we see inflation, gas prices high, and consumer spending is now far higher than ever it was before the COVID pandemic. Like, that's why we have all this new money, literally.
Yeah, and that's the thing I keep asking, because we've already seen sort of these little examples. There's the microchip shortage, and that's why there aren't as many new cars. And so now the used cars are selling for 20 to 30% above Blue Book value. Mm-hmm. You've got, I have friends of mine who have car leases, and the dealers have called them up and said, hey, we'll pay you to turn your lease in early, which that's unheard of. Usually you get penalized for that. And so it seems to me, with specific to the infrastructure bill, okay, it sounds great. We need to fix our infrastructure, and we're going to spend this. It's almost $1 trillion package. And as you said, 600 billion of it. So then where is all these resources coming from? I mean, like, then there's going to be, we've already seen the supply chain problems of COVID. We've seen the fact too, like these, stimulus checks that got sent out to average Americans and everyone went buying. Well, most of the appliances and stuff that they bought, well, they're all made in China. So we just sent a bunch of money to China,
Exactly.
who we keep calling our enemy, and they're like to justify
Supplying us with stuff.
Yeah, I know. So like, it just seems like we're insane. Your analogy of the markets is like a kid. I don't know. I think that's too kind. I think the markets and the American economy is like a crackhead. I think
okay, that's a better analogy, actually. Definitely.
Just like, who needs another fix, man?
He needs another stimulus shot. Yeah, exactly. Every single time the market throws a temper tantrum, the Fed's like, okay, my bad. We need to slow this down. We need to slow this taper tantrum and everything. We can't possibly raise rates right now. Like literally, that's the argument that they're having right now, when to actually raise rates, when to actually tighten, that the economy won't actually overheat. And every single time the big debate is, oh, well, we can't possibly raise rates right now. The economy is just too fragile. If we do, the market's just going to throw a hissy fit. Well, then let the market throw a hissy fit. Let it actually correct itself, because that's what the markets are supposed to do. That's what a free market's supposed to do. It's supposed to have its up cycles, then it's supposed to have a couple crashes and everything. Like that's how they actually correct itself, so we don't have one big fat dramatic crash as a result from a bubble exploding.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. And then what's that going to mean? Interest rates go to 15% or they go to -5? Like what how do you, I know you don't want to get into the sort of crystal ball stuff, but just in terms of, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to even.
It's hard to forecast that far. And the thing is, nobody wants to actually do it, because think about the people who are actually making these decisions. Everything in DC is very short term because you're only in office for 4 years. So of course, the White House is going to say that, oh, inflation is not really a concern. They're going to say anything in order to get their budgets, plans, their proposals, their infrastructure plans passed, because that's how they make their mark in the office. But the thing is, once their agenda is passed, once they've made their mark in the 4 years, it becomes someone else's problem. Inflation isn't their problem. It's someone else's problem. Someone else is sitting in the office, and then meanwhile, everybody else, the people, we're going to be sitting with 1970 style inflation again. The term's up, not my problem. Like, my job's done. Bye. Like, that's how the attitude is in DC with our politicians, because the cycle keeps on being like, not my problem, it's going to be someone else. We just need to make this stretch so that things don't blow up during my term.
Yeah, exactly. As long as we can get to the next election, then we'll blame it on the other party. These two corrupt parties just keep blaming each other. It's just like ridiculous. Coke saying, wow, Pepsi caused all the diabetes, not us. And then it's just like, Pepsi's like, well, yeah, but they cause cavities. That's just like horrible. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please hit the like button, the subscribe button. Go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood and rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, where you can support the show. Also, I have a Bitcoin wallet, a Bitcoin Cash wallet, and an Ethereum wallet in the show notes. We're taking cryptocurrency. I have a Coinbase affiliation link. We're going to be getting on some other exchanges. So that's how you support the show. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. YouTube is unsubscribing us at an alarming rate. I have a PayPal button at GrahamElwood.com. I even have a Venmo at Graham-Elwood. There's a lot of ways to support our show. We are getting crushed by YouTube. We've dipped under 73,000 subscribers because of YouTube. Thanks for supporting what we do.